another episode of Dance Talk Realness, a podcast where we discuss all nuances concerning education and dance, because a dance experience is an experience worth talking about. I'm your host, Truly B, and today we'll be jumping into part 2 of our Defining Dance Education series with my special guest, Mr. Julius Brewster-Cotton. But first, before we jump into all of that, I'm going to give you our quote of the day, which is from Aristotle. "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." So, if you want to be great, you need to practice being great. So, Julius, tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, where I began my dance studies at the Crown Heights Youth Collective in various African dance forms. From there, I went to the Philippa Duke Schuyler Middle School, the Philippa Schuyler Middle School for the Gifted and Talented, IS 383 in Bushwick, where I really formally began my studies in classical ballet, jazz, and contemporary dance forms. And from there, I went to Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School, better known as the Fame School, in Manhattan, where I really solidified the fact that this was something that I wanted to do, this thing called dance. And from there, I went to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, where I received my bachelor's degree in dance. I also hold a master's degree in dance from Holland University. I've danced in various companies in the States, the majority of the time with the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, also with the Lula Elsie Dance Company in Louisiana, and I was the founding member of Ballet West, which was formerly called the Las Vegas Contemporary Dance Company. And now I live and work here in Mexico.
So, the first question I have for you is, how do you define dance education?
I think dance education encompasses many aspects. It's not only the physical practice of dance that forms part of dance education, but there's also the philosophical element, there's the investigative element, and when I say investigative, I'm talking about the dancers finding the ways in which they translate movement. I think oftentimes in dance education, we've asked dancers to learn something, repeat it, regurgitate it, and then share that. And so there seems to be just this cycle of repetition. Mm-hmm. And so when I speak about dance investigation, I'm talking about an education in dance where the person in front, whether it be a student who is sharing, or a former dancer, or a college professor, or the gamuts of those who educate in dance, they're many. But that person who is there gives the movement, but allows for exploration and investigation so that the dancer is in turn educating themselves. That for me is dance education, that there has to be a certain amount of investigative practice in the movement practice. Also, dance education for me is learning history, and not just the quote-unquote Western canon of history, but the history of dance that is even in your own local communities. Like I said, I started dancing in Crown Heights Youth Collective. There's a history behind that should be investigated and should form part of dance education. And so I think dance education needs to encompass not only the canon, which many of us revere, but we also need to acknowledge that outside of that canon, there are other parts that we need to educate our dancers on, or rather inform them, because, when I hear education, I think, do it this way, you must, and I think it's more about informing.
Yes. So would you say that the focus should be shifting more from it being a do what I'm telling you to do, to okay, well, this is a general concept, this is an idea. Okay, now how can you translate that?
Exactly.
How can you
Exactly.
bring that into your own
Exactly. Because I think that's the only way we're going to see a new generation of dance creators. I think that's the only way we're going to see a new era of dance artists. I mean, for me, the difference between a dancer and an artist is the artist has actually taken the time to investigate this craft called dance and their place in it. Because then they understand this is what I have to offer. I don't think dancers have very much to offer more than their bodies. My mother can dance, so therefore, in many aspects, she's a dancer. She is a mover, but she's not a dance artist. And I think that's what we need. I think that's what's missing. We're teaching people how to just be dancers. I'm sorry, and dance artists.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but if you look at not a newborn child, but a child that has mastered balance and can now stand on two legs, you put on music and they move.
Yeah.
They're dancing.
Yes.
They're dancing.
It's true.
But they're not investigating what that is.
Yes.
So there needs to be something that separates them. So for me, dance education needs to be about allowing for the dancer to become an artist in every sense of the word and give them enough tools to decide where in this dance do they want to belong. Not everyone who dances is going to be an interpreter. Just because you are taking a dance class does not mean you are going to dance. You may want to be the one that patterns the way we see the dance and become a choreographer. You may want to be the one that directs the company because you have the skill for management. But it's important that you are versed in dance.
I agree wholeheartedly. A lot that I've seen, some of the issues, because I have the long background dealing with public education, dance, and kind of just seeing that idea of, even within the public school system, that there is the idea of, no, we're training people to be able to follow rules and to follow directions, and I just want you to do what I'm telling you to do.
Unfortunately, you don't train people, you train animals.
Yes. That is true.
You train animals.
That is true.
You educate beings. You educate a dancer. You don't train them. You don't train a dancer.
And so some of it is even in how we articulate what it is
The
we're
words
doing.
that we use, the hermeneutics.
Yes. Because it's that idea of we're not even expected to be educating them to be able to think for themselves. Not even in our supposed core subjects. And so, of course, by the time you get to the arts, they're just like, okay, well, just teach them how to draw something. Teach them how to play an instrument.
The majority of dancers don't know how to improv.
That is so very true.
And I hate to say it, I'm one of them. Improvisation frightens the hell out of me. Well, why is that? Because I was trained.
Yes. You weren't educated.
I wasn't educated. I was trained. I wasn't given the tools to investigate how Julius moves. I'm just doing that. I'm just doing that as a choreographer. I improv on other bodies when I'm choreographing. But Julius himself, if he has ever been given the opportunity to improv and feel liberated, no. Have I been emancipated? Yes. Have I been liberated? No. Because there is a praxis that is involved in that, you know. I think once we begin to understand as dancers how to emancipate our thinking and our bodies from this concept of being trained, there comes the liberation. But liberation is, like you quoted from Aristotle, it's a practice, it's a praxis. You know, Paulo Freire in Pedagogy of the Oppressed spoke about praxis. Praxis is taking what you have been thinking, that which you know, and put it into practice to effect change. And I think what happens with dance education is that we know that the system is broken, we've emancipated ourselves from it, but we have not practiced liberation. We haven't put it into practice, i.e., there's no praxis.
So, for those of us who we are trying to head that way, what do you think are some steps that we can take on individual level, and also how we can start trying to broaden it out to help expand the field and get more people to see?
I think part of it is, all of us in our particular classes that we teach, we have to make our intentions known to our students, because we can't do it without them. We can't change a broken dance educative system without letting those who we are educating and the system in which they are in is broken. And that we need them as well. We can't do it without them. So I think first we have to inform them that we are trying to make this change, and in informing them, tell them to hold us accountable. Hold me accountable so that these are not just pointless words. You hold me in account with my actions. You call me out.
Talk the talk, walk the walk.
Call me out when you feel stifled. Call me out when I'm telling you, no, you're wrong. Instead of seeing, well, that's a different way of doing it. Not that you're wrong. Well, this is just a different way of doing it. This is a different way of seeing it. Call me out. Hold me into account so that I'm actively thinking.
And there's a lot of getting over yourself involved in that for the educator, because since we came up not being able to question our teachers like that,
Never.
Then that's the example that we've always had.
You can show the door.
Yes.
You don't like it, you can leave.
Bye.
Or don't miss the step, the shoe can fly.
And so now we just keep
We
reiterating.
perpetuate that.
And it's this moment of being able to be honest and open with the students and being able to say, I'm also a human, I'm also a person.
And I'm trying.
Yes.
And I don't know. I don't know what the end product of this will be. But let's explore it together.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have the answers. But I do know that something here is wrong. So I need you to help me figure out what doesn't work and what does work for you. I mean, there are some dancers who need that, who need you to tell them this. Okay, if that's what you need, although it is not what I would like to offer to you, I would do that. We have to get to know also. Part of what's wrong with education is we need to stop making dancers numbers.
Yes.
We need to stop making dancers
Have
numbers.
that conversation with a few people.
Okay, not a number. Starts in the audition.
Like you're a person.
You're a person. You're not number 1 through 10. Take the time to call every name. And that makes it personal. If we want to change the system, we have to get to know those who are inside of the system. Know their names, know their nuances, know their likes and dislikes. Like I said, there are dancers who like this.
Yes.
They like that. If that is what they prefer, who am I to say no? But then there are other dancers whose spirit just is broken under that system and are never allowed to fully come into who they are as a performer, as an artist, as a choreographer, as a visionary.
Because I think some of it comes down to, in addition to us being open and honest and being transparent and being willing to get that feedback, that there's also that differentiation of being able to say, okay, I know when I address this one, this is how I approach it. I address this one, this is how I approach it. But I think that, and I haven't mastered it, but I think that there is a way for that student who needs this, for there still to be that infusion of, okay, I can give you this, but I also, in the process of this, I'm still educating you on how to think of this
I'm trying
for
to
yourself.
liberate you. I'm trying
Like,
to
I can give you straightforward and direct without taking away your ability to think for yourself and your ability to articulate what it is you need.
Exactly.
And so I think, especially when we're dealing with it starts young, because it's so easy to just tell a child, sit down, stand here, do this, no conversation. And as they carry on, they just become accustomed to it. And so even if they do come across a teacher who is trying to open it up for them, they've spent X amount of years just I don't know what to think. I don't know what I believe. I don't know what I feel. Just tell me what you want me to do.
Right. I mean, I do believe that there is a place for discipline and order.
Yes.
I'm not saying that there isn't. Everything in this mega galaxy, there is a structure.
Yes.
There is an order. Yes, I do believe it's necessary. I mean, even the planets within our solar system, there is a structure and an order. There is a center in which they circle. So yes, I do believe that dancers should have a circle, a center rather, in which they circle and rotate. However, if we even think about the way in which the Earth rotates on this axis, it's not completely circular. There are deviants.
Yes.
There are deviants. It is not a perfect circle. So there has to be room also for deviants, but there's a structure, and that structure helps guide the dancer into their truth.
Mm.
So there has to be a balance. Yes, you do want the student to learn discipline. You do want the student to point their feet.
Yes.
You do want the student to
hold their court.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you do. But you also want to give the student the freedom to decide when it's not necessary. Mm-hmm. When the foot is flexed. When I'm allowed to let go of the center to really feel the true weight of my body.
Yeah. Which I think ties me into our next topic that's still within the same vein. Because you are a dance educator. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that you wish you would have been told prior to going into education?
That what I have to offer is unique and necessary. We hold ourselves to such high standards that are impossible to reach. We try to be the perfect educator in an imperfect system with broken students. Our students are broken. They're sad, they're lost, they're angry, they're confused. There's a hodgepodge of emotions that they have to deal with this generation. Mm-hmm. They have to deal with body image. They have to deal with bullying. They have to deal with concepts of gender and acceptance or no acceptance. They have to deal with sexting. They have to deal with body shaming. They have to deal with a world that says if you don't leave with a BFA or an MFA, you're not worth it. And we hold ourselves to these standards of perpetuating this. So I wish someone would have told me that what I have to offer is unique and necessary. Because if I was told that what I have to offer is unique and necessary, I would have honed in on that uniqueness.
Yes.
And I would have found where it was necessary. Even now, I suffer with if what I'm doing is enough. If this is what they need, or even if this is what they want, do they like me? You know? And it comes from all of these things that I mentioned before this. Not feeling that you're necessary. And I think that's one of the things that we need to change. We need to begin to tell dancers that their voices are unique and necessary. What you have to offer will change the dance world. Not if, it will change the dance world. Because you will have an influence on someone. You will change how they see dance. You will change how they move. So yes, what you have to offer is unique and necessary.
And I know that that's, especially having children who dance, I have even been guilty of repeating some things that I'd heard, like for my daughter, that I've always been told, well, girls are a dime a dozen. You either need to be perfect or you're not getting that job. Boys is easy. And it's like breaking that cycle and saying, but you are still an individual. You still have something that you can give that nobody else can give. And so, like, really, I think starting to voice that more across the board.
Yeah. It's sad. It is a cycle, you know. Was I given opportunity because I was a male? Yes. Do I understand why that was necessary? Yes, because there were no men dancing.
Yes.
Because we live in a misogynistic world that doesn't allow little boys to play with Barbie, wear pink, or want to dance classical ballet. That's the world in which we live in that is gradually changing. So it should not be easy for boys.
Yeah.
Boys should be held to the same standard as women in dance. That's how we break the hegemonic practice of gender in dance.
Yes.
From right there. That the boys are given the scholarships.
Yep.
But the girls have to pay.
Yes. Everyone should have the same standard, that either you meet this standard or you did not.
Do I understand that there are studios and schools that are suffering a loss of male dancers? Yes. Why does dance always have to be so gendered? Was it necessary? Yes, it was necessary with Petit Pas. It was necessary with Fokine. It was necessary with Balanchine. Yes. Because they lived in that hegemony. They lived in that fantasy of good versus evil, of prince and princess, of man comes to save the day. They lived that. But now we have many women who are saving the day. So why does dance always have to be so gendered? There are women saving men.
So their dance reflected the times they were in.
Exactly.
But it's not reflecting ours.
It's not reflecting a time where the majority of dancers are questioning their own gender pronouns. And so then we're forcing them. It's so funny because, you know, think about it. In the real world, they're questioning gender pronouns. We're sewing in that real world, they can express who they are. They can express their essence and their truth. Yet at the same time, in the dance world, where we have been told, this is the place where you express who you are, your truth, be you.
Yeah.
We're still making them conform to gender roles.
It's like, be free, be you,
But be man.
Be a man.
Or be female.
Be feminine. That's it. But be you, though. It's like, okay.
It's part of the broken system.
That's conflicting information.
It's part of that broken system. You know? So that's one of the things that also has to change. And how do we do it? I don't know. I'm trying. You know, and I start with the attire. In my syllabus, I tell them, here there is no specified attire for men or women in this classical ballet class. You do not have to wear pink tights because you are women. You do not have to wear black tights because you are gender men. You can wear whatever you feel necessary in so long as I, as a teacher, can see your body to help you and facilitate your growth. Notice, I did not say correct you. To help you facilitate your growth.
It took me a long time to get out of saying, so I can correct you. And I'm like, no, it's so I can see. And if there is something out of alignment that can cause you harm, then I can see it and make you aware. And we can make our adjustments instead of me saying, you're wrong. And that took me a while because that's all I knew.
That's how a lot of people still know. Surprisingly.
It is.
A lot of people still operate under that system of what is correct, what is acceptable.
That's true. But I will say, I think that it does start with us, with the people who, because at this point, the people who are already out there doing their thing, not to say that people can't change, but it is definitely like trying to teach an old dog new tricks. So it's almost like starting from the bottom, starting from the source.
Yeah.
And then as this new crop is coming up, they're already being filled with affirmation, and they're already being filled with the skills to be able to think and process for themselves and to ask the questions that need to be asked and to really get comfortable in their body.
And, that comes, it's a metaphor, but you're laying the grounds of a beautiful metaphor. And you say new crop. And think about it. A new crop has to come from new seeds. They have to be planted in fertile ground. So I think for this new crop, we have to plant them in a ground that is fertile enough to give them the nutrients necessary to be a new crop that really has an amazing harvest.
Yes.
We can't keep planting them in the same soil that has been used and used and used, because the nutrients are less and less and less. We have to look for new ground to plant these seeds. And yes, it does start with us in education, but it also comes with taking, those dancers who have been informed under another system and giving them the opportunity, if they so desire, to see the system in which they operate and how and if it's necessary for them to make adjustments. Because if not, it's going to die. Their art is going to die. Adjustments must be made. It's called evolution. There's nothing wrong with evolving and changing. It's evolution.
And I remember us having that conversation in the house about, is dance dying? And with that idea of trying to keep replanting in the same used soil, and every single time you're losing more and more, yes, at some point that will be a barren field.
Yeah.
And so that makes that is a visual that I think I'm going to keep moving forward, because you have to do something different. You have to evolve. You have to be willing to shift. Or it will die.
I mean, I'm thinking right now that, I have a syllabus that I have to do, and I have a syllabus that I have to turn in, and even the students, they want a syllabus. Why? Because they want that order. They want to know what it is that you are going to teach me. Instead of, this is the class, these are the objectives of the class, but getting to the final result is determined by how well we operate as a team. And maybe as a team, we decide that the desired result is not the result that's on the syllabus. Maybe we as a team want something different.
And that's that allowing for shift to happen. That's allowing that.
And it puts a lot of pressure on students. It puts a lot of pressure on educators. Because yes, you hold yourself accountable to a syllabus. A syllabus is a great guide to help us navigate.
It's a guide.
But sometimes it can be a burden.
Yes.
Because the students will say, well, I didn't learn any of that's on the syllabus.
Yeah.
Or you said we were going to learn this, but we never got to this. Well, we never got to this because I, as an educator, saw the need to stay here. So I mean, like I said, it's a give and take. Do I understand the necessity of a syllabus? Yes. But do I see the need for deviance in the syllabus at times? Yes. I do.
Because that's even something which was always odd to me in the school system, is that they would harp on us about lesson plans. I always need to have this lesson plan. And it got to the point where they wanted a written out script as a part of the lesson plan. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not reading the script while I'm teaching. Second of all, if I see in the middle of teaching something that I'm like, oh, they're not getting it, then we're going to stay here. I'm not going to move on, because then I'm doing them a disservice.
Exactly.
But then they would turn around and say in a meeting, oh, well, you have to be able to, make these adjustments as you go. I'm like, well, you're telling me two different things. Yeah. And I do subscribe to that. I need to be able to, I don't mind having a guide. And so I was always disobedient. I didn't write my lesson plans. Sorry. Not sorry. Did not write them, because I'm like, no, the point of this plan is for me to say, okay, I know these are the things that we have scheduled to do. But if at some point halfway, beginning, end, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't working, then I'm like, okay, scrap that. Let's figure out how to make sure they're comfortable with this information, so that at some point, if they're somewhere else, they have the facility to be able to say, oh, I've learned this. Okay, this is how I can apply it. This is what I do. Exactly. And there's this disconnect that it's, I said it in one of our meetings before, that two things can be true. I can both have that structure and allow for deviance.
Yes.
They both can happen. I don't have to just pick one or the other.
It's like Jacques Derrida. When in his book Margins of Philosophy, he speaks about difference and difference. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between the two? They are both the same, but there are subtle differences that help us get to where we need to be based off of the difference. And I think that's also what comes to mind when we talk about this deviance. It doesn't always have to be that way. There can be slight and subtle changes that affect the way it is seen, that affects the way it operates. And it's the same thing in education. I'm not completely leaving the system that has been given to me for structure's sake, but I'm just changing an accent. I'm just changing an accent. I'm giving an accent where one was not before, just to add a little bit more intrigue, to ask more questions. That's all. It should never have to be this way or that way. I'm a big fan of Parmenides. Anyone who knows me at philosophy knows that I love Parmenides and on the nature of things. But he talks about, the path that is, the path of truth. And then there's the path of opinion, or doxa. But he never says in his text that opinion is wrong. He says opinion is just another way of seeing the truth, your truth. And so I think we also need to get out of that there is only one way of seeing things. That there's one truth that's not true.
Yes.
You know, I mean, some people may disagree with what I'm about to say, but if we take the time to think about it, we'll see that maybe what I'm about to say has some validity. We like to say that Donald Trump is a liar. Maybe he's not. Maybe he is in fact telling his truth. Because he believes it that way. Doesn't make it true for me.
Yeah.
But it makes it true for him. And maybe, if I stop calling him a liar and say, okay, I hear you, I see you, I understand you, but can we maybe see how your truth and my truth are colliding, and how maybe we can come to some form of an agreement together? That's what's wrong also in education. We hire someone to educate, but then we tell them the way that they're educating is wrong. Instead of saying, okay, I see you, I hear you, I'm not in agreement, but can we come to a negotiation?
Yes.
We have to stop telling people that what they see is not true. Because in a way, we're telling people to stop imagining a world where it can be true. I mean, just us as African Americans, there was a moment where the truth was we would never dance in ballet companies. The truth was we could only dance ethnic dances. The truth was if you are a contemporary dancer, you can only dance in Alvin Ailey. But someone said, no. The truth is, I can dance in the Martha Graham Company. The truth is, as Arthur Mitchell said, I can dance in New York City Ballet. They were allowed to imagine another truth. They were allowed to imagine. We have to stop telling people that your truth is wrong. No. Imagine a world where it can be true. So do I agree with the policies of Donald Trump and this Make America Great Again? No, I do not. Can I understand why he wants that to be true? Yes, I can. And that's funny because that was the model of the former president. Yes, we can. Look at that. Look how they formed it. It's almost the same system. Because you can argue that when Barack Obama said, yes, we can, there were many people who said, but we already did it. Just as those who say when Donald Trump says, let's make America great again, they say, but it already is. If we would allow ourselves to just listen to other people's truths, we may be able to negotiate a world in which all is possible. And it's the same in dance. Allow dancers to voice their truth so that we can learn to negotiate with them.
Now, we're going to switch gears a little bit because you did have two topics that I know you said you wanted to touch upon. So the first one, white men in academia. It's always a fun conversation.
It is fun, but I think in order to have that conversation, we need a white man present. I believe very firmly in having a defense alongside the prosecution. Do I want to prosecute white men in education? Yes. Do I feel as though they need to be able to defend themselves? Yes. So I think the second topic is more adequate. And I believe that one was about somatic practice and technique.
Yes.
I say this, thinking of some students that I have who complain with fire about their lack of technique. It's really funny, but yet they don't practice it. They seem turned off to the idea of technique and fall into a more somatic-based practice, which in and of itself is technique, but they don't see it as such because there's more room for exploration. I'd like to see a world in which technique can be explored as well. I teach the Horton technique, and I teach classical ballet. I teach a more neoclassical ballet. But in my classes, I try to structure them as such that the students are allowed to investigate more somatically the breath and the weight, the gravity, the balance, the center in these codified techniques. I do not like dancers who are only concerned with the somatic and not with the skeletal. I make a difference, and maybe people will disagree. I think that technique, if we have to think about the body itself, technique is more skeletal. It's more bony. It's rigid. It has its marrow, it has its cells, it grows, it breaks. Whereas somatic technique for me, the release techniques, the technique of Gaga, they're more muscular, they're more tendons, they're more ligaments, they're more fleshy. And dancers are attracted to that because we are attracted to the flesh. We're attracted to the flesh. But it can't always be about the flesh. The Bible warns against sins of the flesh. And so I'd like to see a world where the two really can coexist, where those who teach technique can stop talking trash about those who teach releasing Gaga, and those who teach releasing Gaga and the other somatic techniques can stop talking trash about those of us who teach technique. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of them telling us that we're rigid and without imagination. And I'm sick of us telling our students that they're a bunch of hippies who don't know how to point their feet. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of that division. This divisive rhetoric. I'm sick of it. I'm over it.
And to your point, the body is not only flesh.
It's not only muscle.
The body is not only skeletal. We have both, and both exist together. And we can't function and operate without both working together.
Exactly.
So why can't that translate?
It needs to.
Over.
I'm just so sick of it. I hate it. And we teach our students that rhetoric.
Yeah.
We teach them that. We teach them that the students who are more somatic based do cymatics because they don't have the bodies for technique.
Yeah.
They don't have the feet for ballet. How dare you judge that body? How dare you? But also to those who are in a somatic practice, how dare you tell me I'm rigid? How dare you tell me I don't know how to use my imagination?
Tell you that you're not creative.
That I'm not creative.
Yeah.
How dare you? Do you know the creation that was necessary to codify ballet? Do you know the creative power of George Balanchine? Have you seen the complexities of his choreographies? The musicality of his... How dare you? How dare you tell me that there is no need for the grand technique? A technique that is centered in the centering of the human experience, that talks about the divine center. How dare you tell me that it's not necessary, where I see students take a grand class and they leave in tears because they've connected to their center. They felt something divine. How dare you tell me that that can only happen in improvisation, when the bodies are touching? And let's just be very real about it. For many years, the black body was not allowed in contact improv. Okay? So no, somatic practice also has its demons.
Yes.
So we need to stop this divisive rhetoric. It's poisonous, it's venom. It does not allow for an integral system of harmony in the dance community. We need to stop it. We need to stop it. I'm sick of it.
Like that reinforcing of that binary. And to me, dance and all the arts, really, if no one else is able to operate outside of that, it should be us. And so why are we still subscribing to this? Like, okay, it's this or that. And it's like there's all this
It needs to stop.
in between. And it does.
It needs to stop.
Because you need all of it to have that full experience. Because if I only ever study codified styles, then I'm missing something that I would be missing that I can only get from somatic practice. And vice versa. If I've only ever done somatic practices, there's a lot that I'm missing that I can only get from these codified styles. And so why would you not want these to come together? And it's not to say that, oh, well, you need to try to become proficient at all of it. It's like, no, like, you have what you specialize in.
You get to choose.
You get to choose. I was like, but when you're, especially in the role of educator, when you're talking to the student, instead of saying, well, the thing I do is the most important, the rest of it, don't worry about it.
Right.
It's like what I'm doing is important, but you also need to go somewhere else and get some of this because you're going to need it. You need all of these parts. This is just what I specialize in. Like, this is what I know how to do.
This is what I chose for me.
Like, but for you, get a little bit of everything, and then you can choose for yourself.
Exactly.
Which thing is like, oh, okay, I have all
And
these
that's
pieces.
called education.
Yes,
That's education.
it is. I think that was a perfect wrap up to that. So before I let you go,
Okay.
I have a question for you as a part of the Ultimate Dance Trio. So my question is, if you could study with 3 people you see as dance greats, who would you choose and why?
I would choose George Balanchine. Why? I just want to be there to see him create, to see him make the score, the musical score, move physically in this play. I don't think we give George Balanchine enough credit. He was visionary.
Yes.
He was a dance genius. He was.
Yes. For sure.
When we think that in Agon, he put a black body with a white body, knowing that it would cause conflict. I appreciate that. Because thanks to him, little black boys were able to see themselves dancing classical ballet. I would also like to train under Nijinsky.
Yes.
His schizophrenic mind was a little bit before its time. People labeled him mad. They labeled him unstable. But again, he was living his truth. He was living his truth. And I would love to train under that type of schizophrenia, where I'm allowed to lose reason and just live in my own truth. And third, there's so many. But I think I would like to have trained under Mary Wiegmann. Oh my God, or Pearl Primus.
Like there's so many.
So many.
There's so many.
Or even Catherine Dunham. But what these three women had in particular with me was their sense of exploration of the human spirit, that anthropological aspect of dance, the intellectualizing, if that's even a word, of dance. To say that dancers are not just movers, they can also be investigators on and in the field. And what Pearl Primus, what Catherine Dunham did with the legacy of the diaspora. You want to talk about Black pride?
Yes.
I mean, wow. You want to talk about Black is beautiful. You want to talk about kings and queens. They did the thing. I mean, they really made it real. It just wasn't words. It was praxis. And then to have someone like Mary Wiegmann to make her dances, to show the horrible side of what it was to be German, to show the other truth. These are women who told the truth. And so I would love to be trained under those types of people who are fearless, who are truthful.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me and really sharing with the audience another way of defining dance education, because it is important that we talk about this and that we get these different perspectives, as we've been saying, because there's more than one truth.
There is more than one truth.
So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us for yet another episode of Dance Talk Realness. Be sure to follow across all social media at Dance Talk Realness, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and iTunes. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.